welcome to the latest EOcafe. Good to see you all again. This is what, the 65th EOcafe, something like that. So normal rules apply. Please keep your microphones off unless I specifically ask you to join in the discussion, which I will do if you put an interesting question in the chat. And if we pick it up, then I'll ask you to pose the question yourself. Feel free to leave your camera on. It's always good to see people. And as I've just said, use the chat to put questions in. But also, if you want to exchange information, put information for people into the chat. It's quite useful for that, for communicating. So feel free to just put your messages in there. So I hope everyone's got a coffee, or in my case, a tea, to enjoy with the EOcafe. A very quick apology for some of the errors that crept into the concept note. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but we'll try to avoid it happening again. Guest today, well known to the community, Federica Mastracci. Welcome, Federica. Many of you will know Federica from her time at EGEOS and at Telespazio, but her new role is as IRIDE Service Segment Manager in the ESA-ASI Integrated Project Team. And Federica, perhaps as usual in the EOcafe, I can ask you just to kick off by telling a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Good afternoon to everybody. Have a nice coffee break and with us, and thanks, Jeff, to inviting me. Yes, I'm at home here. Let me say, yes, because I spent more than 20 years in working in industry in the geospatial sector and experiencing, I would say, a wonderful 20 years of evolution of Earth observation from R&D up to real operational services. I have a degree in physics and in environmental engineering, but I had a third fantastic teacher, that is Copernicus, and in my professional life, and working in Copernicus programs in the service side since it was GMES, since GMS service element, from ESA up to European Commission, fast tracks, GMS initial operations, and then the operational services as they are today, especially in emergency, maritime surveillance, agriculture, ground motion. So it was fantastic. And after this very, I would say, lucky experience, then 1 year ago, in July, I left industry and I joined a new adventure, let me say, because I joined IRIDE program as a service segment manager in the ESA IPT, that is the integrated project team, between ESA, Italian Space Agency, and other institutional actors that are developing, coordinating the development of IRIDE system.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's true. I mean, Copernicus, you've had Copernicus virtually for most of your career, and that's been a good building block and a dropping off point to move to IRIDE. So that's worked quite well.
It is.
Two major programs. Maybe before, I'll just introduce the background to this, but maybe before that, I could just ask you, what is the ESA IRIDE integrated project team?
Yes. Okay, it is integrated because it was a decision of the Italian government to spend the Piano Nazionale di National Plan of Recovery and Resilience, so the Next Generation EU, that in Italy is quite big, and to ask to the European Space Agency to manage the procurement and the development of the Earth observation space system, that then the name now is IRIDE, within this context. So to do that, the European Space Agency set up an ad hoc dedicated team made by ESA employees and ESA people, anyhow, contractors and whatever, and integrating in the team also Italian Space Agency people and also people from the main institutional users that are from ISPRA. ISPRA, not ISPRA where GRC is. ISPRA is our, probably you know a lot of that because it is our Institute for Environmental Prevention and Monitoring, and that is very active in Copernicus, and they are also managing the National User Forum in Italy. And also including people from the Italian Civil Protection and from Italia Meteo, that is our Italian meteorological office. And other institutions are jumping in, are joining us in the IPT. And so we can say that IRIDE is actually a co-developed, co-designed system because we are working really closely all together to design and develop a system that is from the upstream up to the services.
That's what we'll mainly talk about, but co-design in an institutional sense as well, which is interesting. And so I mean, just to give a little bit of the background, you've mentioned a couple of points there, but this was in the background to the COVID-19 crisis in 2020 that the EU decided to set up this Recovery and Resilience Fund, new EU, as you said, as a budget of 770 billion, I mean, a largest budget, and I think it was one of the first actions that were taken at EU level where money was borrowed. There was actually debt created at the European level, which was a first. Member states were then invited to submit proposals, not just but largely development of infrastructure around Europe, and based upon the loans and the grants that will come out of this 770 billion. And Italy proposed a number of proposals, of course, but one of those was for a constellation of EO satellites, targeted, I believe, at climate change. And this has become known as IRIDE, and we'll talk more about it as we go along. From what I understand, it's a tight and ambitious program. First satellite is due for launch in, well, less than 3 years' time now, in 2026. But I hope that a bit later on you'll be able to talk a little about the programmatics and some of the timing elements. But the thing that stands out for me as an institutional program is linked to what you've just said about the co-design and the joint team, because a lot of effort is being invested very early on to bring users on board and to understand really what users will want from it, and to design the system around user requirements. Now, we do or should do this as a matter of course in the commercial sector, as we create a business plan for it and to get funding. But this is really the first case, I think, and somebody online can correct me if I'm wrong, where this is at least so prominent in an institutional program, a government-led program. And that for me is really something that stands out. So as you've just explained, the Italian government have asked ESA to support ASI in the development and implementation of it. But before going on, perhaps we should understand a bit more what it is.
Yes.
If you could just tell us a little bit about the IRIDE system and what it will.
Yes, I apologize because I know in the EOcafe slides are not nice to have a coffee cup and slides, but just to support what I say with really just 3 slides. I hope you see.
Yeah.
Okay, so IRIDE is, as we said, an end-to-end system. So it includes upstream, downstream, and 8 service domains, service sectors. The upstream is and has been conceived since the beginning, so under ESA contractual rules and manage now the development of it thanks to the IPT, as we said, has been conceived starting from a big work that in Italy was done before IRIDE, that was the Piano Nazionale di Osservazione della Terra, and where all the requirements of the national institutions have been collected, the requirements related to geospatial needs. As you know, in Italy we have quite an active community of users, very well organized and managed by the National User Forum, that also allow industries to meet, research and development, users. So it's we have a very active community in this respect. And so we started in designing the statement of works and the procurement process. We started from that requirements. And the system now that is under development is continuing, is again and again under the revision and under the we collect the feedback of the users continuously, and also because they are involved in the IPT. So this is the system, a really high-level picture, of course. The scope and the focus is on national authorities, needs, because the Piano Nazionale di Resilienza and Recovery is related to investments for public goods, for public for enhancing our public assets, but of course IRIDE will also really push and strengthen the Italian ecosystem in the geospatial world. Even if the services we are developing are the services for the Italian institutions, of course, industry working on that will grow in capability and in competitiveness with respect to the current status. Very shortly, the system, so we started last year to work on IRIDE, building the procurement phase that we closed in March of this year, according to the milestones of the overall PNRR plan. And now we are developing the system as you see. The constellations, it is from the upstream point of view, we have a constellation of constellations, because we have 6 different constellations, multi-sensor, a total of 34 satellites in the baseline and 35 in the second batch that are already funded, and they just need a green light from us to be kicked off. The radar constellation are X-band. Then there are hyperspectral satellites, multi-spectral capabilities, and AIS also capability that will be attached to one of the multi-spectral constellations, and very high resolution constellation as well. I cannot say too much on the constellation side, because we are still consolidating the architecture of the overall system, so orbits and this type of characteristics are not yet, we cannot yet speak about that. Of course, there is a downstream segment that is the FOSP, DGS, and Mission Manager, plus a marketplace, as we call, that will be the unique point of access to the overall system, so the data and also the services. And then, last but not least, we have the service segment. The service segment has 2 elements. One is the one that is the main one, let me say, that will develop the services for the public administrations, and the other one is a small activity that however is very, very important, that is done at local administration level with let me say an operational uptake activity. So we have selected 5 very simple services that are quite mature, and we are with these projects and thanks to even there a strong cooperation with some local users, so users from the local administration, promoting the use of these services. So it's a kind of from the bottom to foster and to generate an ecosystem that then will be able actually to receive this big innovation in technology. Concerning we have divided the 8 service domain in 4 contracts, clustering them according criteria. I don't want to enter in these details, but just to give you a look on how the portfolio will be structured, because for each of these domains that are we said before, so I don't repeat, we have defined a portfolio of service value chains together with the users at the beginning, and taking inspiration from the big work of the Piano Nazionale di Osservazione della Terra. And these service value chains have been defined with the input data, processing, and output. And now we are developing these service value chains in all these contracts. So you can see many topics. We have 70 service value chains in the 4 lots, and many products, more than 400 products that will be designed, developed, and also during, let me say, this period of development that finish in 2026, we will also experience with the users a real usage of these products up to the end of the overall program. Because, as I said at the beginning, the European Space Agency and the IPT have a mandate that lasts mid of 2026. At that time, we will deliver the overall system, satellites, ground segment, and service segment, to the government, to an operator or a number of operators that they will define in the meantime, and full stop. Our job will finish at that time, and the system will be taken by the government and hopefully carried on, operated, evolved. And that's a big picture related to the programmatic aspects. Let me add, because we are here at EOcafe, that it's really, it's like an Italian Copernicus, let me say. We are involving more than 150 companies, mainly among prime contractors, suppliers. The majority of them are Italians. And we are really working, I would say, with all the sector in Italy. All are involved, from the big companies up to the small startup that was able to bring let me say, not a pure R&D contribution, because this is an investment. So at the very end, we will deliver an operational system with a lot of innovation, but an operational system. So we are really working on, all the people working on IRIDE, both from our side and from industry side, are really aware that we are really doing something that in Italy was never seen before, even if, of course, we have big experience also in Italy, like Cosmos-Skymed and Prisma and other big missions. So Italy is not actually a new country with respect to space. Another important point is that, and this is true especially for the services, of course, the service segment of IRIDE will rely now, but also when IRIDE satellites will be on orbit, we rely on already existing capacity, because we have to deliver a sustainable system. So we are developing the services taking into consideration Copernicus data, and of course national assets such as Cosmos-Skymed, but also Prisma and SAOCOM. So we are really, this is what we are trying to do, really challenging.
So does that mean that all the satellites should be built by 2026?
The plan today is this one. So we have to have at least the first batch operational, all the 2 batch operational before we deliver the system to the government.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll come back to who will operate IRIDE when it's
this is not this has not been decided yet by the Italian government. ESA mandate is only not so easy, but is only to develop and deliver the system. Then in the meantime, at government level, they are working to define an operator, a governance of this big investment. And I'm sure that as soon as something will be ready, we will be put in the loop in order to guarantee a smooth transition towards that phase. But I mean, we have in front of us 2024, 2025 to really develop and deliver this, develop and put in place the system. So there is time to also to do that.
But is it envisaged that will be privately operated or publicly operated?
I don't know. I don't know. This not really no rumors. No nothing. Nothing still is around with this respect.
Okay.
We had also, let me say, the program started with the government, and now we have a new government since 1 year, more or less. So probably in their agenda now, IRIDE is very important because we had minister coming when we successfully achieved the first milestone. So it is also in the agenda of the new government, but not yet in these discussions. So let me say, at least at my level.
Okay, but those will start sometime.
Oh yes, I guess yes.
Not too far away for preparation, but already you've got a good range of stakeholders involved in the program as it is now.
Of course.
Explained.
Yeah, it's really important to have at least the biggest user communities of Earth observation that are actually deeply involved with us. So, of course, this is a plus when you are developing such a system.
Yeah, okay. Now, IRIDE is not being developed in isolation. I mean, there are other programs, most notably Copernicus. And I know, can you explain a bit about the relationship between IRIDE and Copernicus, how they complement each other, or what the thinking is around IRIDE in relation to Copernicus?
Yes. First of all, I can speak about this current phase, that is the design and development of the system that has been done both for the upstream and for the service segment, really taking as a starting point, as a benchmark, as a state of the art, as we call internally in our contracts, what is existing. So both at space level and at ground and at service level. So, for example, you saw that for the services we have 3 cycles of development, more or less of 1 year, so very, very fast. And the first cycle that we are now running is so-called precursor, because we do not have yet the IRIDE data, nor we are able to simulate them yet. And so we are developing these precursor services. Always the first step that we have asked to the industries in the statement of work is to deeply analyze the state of the art, and therefore Copernicus data and services, as well as national services, because Italy is not new in the use of Earth observation. So we have a lot of public administrations already using services in their daily life. So starting from the state of the art, that is a big picture that came, mix of course, Copernicus contribution, both at data level and service level, but also, as I said, the national contribution, not only Cosmos-Climate, but also at service level. Then we built these precursor services complementing or augmenting the capabilities of these services, and very important, going downstream in the Italian needs, because of course Copernicus is a starting point, is a reference, but is addressed to many member states, many different institutions and needs. So IRIDE really wants to address our national needs. Italy, you know, is a territory that is quite challenging in terms of hydrogeological risks, disasters, but not only the protection of our wonderful environment and of our wonderful cultural heritage, of our coastal areas, the environmental protection, and so on and so forth, the security. So we have a lot of use cases that are peculiar of Italy and that we want to address with this system. Of course, as a big downscale, downstream of Copernicus, and also taking benefit of all the other national missions. Of course, when IRIDE satellites will be on orbit, we will still keep using Copernicus data and, of course, CosmosCamera and the other national missions data, because today we learned, thanks to Copernicus and thanks to the real business cases of geoinformation, we learned that the user is not interested in knowing which is the sensor providing that information, but is interested in a service that comply with its needs. And to comply with the needs of a user, we know that services shall take into consideration many sensors, not only satellite sensors, and put all of this together and build the most reliable and suitable information package that respond to that need. And IRIDE service segment is implementing exactly like that.
Okay, let me just a bit nastily probe a little bit more there, because is it possible to say more about where Copernicus is failing to give Italy what it wants, or what Italy wants more than Copernicus? Is it more frequent observations? Is it different types of data?
It is a mix of that. Let me make an example of on the ground motion service, that is one of our domains. Of course, we have European ground motion service that now is up and running. Moreover, many Italian companies are involved in that service. So and it provides a yearly coverage all over Europe of Sentinel-1, of validated data, really operational service. In Italy, complementing that, we have many regions already also improving the service with what we call the PS journals, that are specific local services that augment this capacity of European ground motion, sometimes yes, augmenting the frequency of the monitoring, like from 1 year up to 6 months. What we are doing with IRIDE during the precursor phase, so now in the next months, that is when these services will start to be delivered to, of course, a closed community, because we are in a development phase. What we are going to do with that respect is to, yes, provide a 6 months frequency service for all Italy, based on Sentinel-1, plus we are going to monitor quite a big number of like 30-40 areas of the dimension of a frame of CosmosCamera, so 40, that's on specific areas that we are now defining which areas, defined together with the end user community, and so providing an upgraded service with respect to European ground motion that is devoted to the specificity of Italian territory. And in this way, we will be able to really enlarge and to exploit the big archive of Cosmos-Climate, and to provide these services on these areas that, however, are a big amount of data. Then, when IRIDE satellites, especially the X-band radar constellations, will be operational, they will complement fundamentally Cosmos-Climate acquisitions with we are probably different orbits and different direction of view and different capacity. And so there is a roadmap. I made the example of ground motion, but more or less there is this type of roadmap for each of the services that we are trying to develop. And of course, the user community will be asked to give us the feedbacks in specific steps of the contracts, because we have to keep a structured and under control way to manage these activities, not only because it's quite a huge amount of money and we need to deliver an operational system in 3 years from now, but also because we are managing that through an ESA contract, so the rules are very rigid and robust. So we have set up a set of interface with the users to have them their feedback back. They will be involved in playing with the data and with the services within the development phase. And during the 3 phases of the service segment, we may even decide that some service value chains can be cancelled or that some other can be added. So big flexibility is included in this development, even if we have to be so fast.
Yeah, well, certainly when we did the analysis of the SEBS case in Italy with ANAS, we see the importance of being able to focus in on some areas, and in many cases also have access to the possibility of having higher resolution ground motion. So I mean, certainly there's a complementarity there, and I assume that users will be able to benefit from Copernicus and IRIDE data in a completely sort of opaque way. I wanted to say transparent way, because when we talk about transparency, but they don't care where the data is coming from. They want the
exactly, and this is exactly what we are trying to do in all the services, especially the ones where Copernicus is very effective and operational, and so we need really to build the step forward, to downscale this in the Italian needs, and up to then being able to bring up to the smaller town and local administration. Not okay, that's probably something that will happen after, but as I said, we are already preparing with the small action on the local administrations.
Yeah. I mean, just in that respect, I mean, we're seeing the importance of having a champion who is able to introduce the service into the institution, and this seems to be one of the big barriers in many areas. It's just to explore that a little bit more, because there is this strong effort in IRIDE to make it user-driven. As I said at the beginning, I think it's something which is almost unique in this respect, particularly for a publicly funded program. The Copernicus program did assemble or tried to assemble user requirements very early on, but those were more supply driven, I would say, rather than really demand driven, even though users were interviewed and interrogated about what their needs might be. But quite honestly, I don't think they knew what they could expect, so it was hard for them to describe what they needed. But that's, I think, no longer the case. We have many sources of data, and IRIDE is looking to bring the users on board very early, before the satellites are launched. You've said a little bit about it, but maybe we could just develop that a little bit more about how the effort to bring those users and engage them with the program from an early stage.
Yeah, the engagement of users in the program is done, let me say, at two levels. We have a kind of a larger team that was involved since the beginning with in the design and the definition of the upstream characteristics that the most technological users that we have in Italy. And now in the services, as I said, in the IPT, we have the representative people that are involved in the formal review of deliverables. We are in ESA contracts mode, so the rules of ESA for developing operational systems is applied to IRIDE, so very formal, very efficient and effective. And we have them involved in the review of the progress of the activities. But it is not enough, because of course it's really a restricted team. We have in the services, we have involved in the contracts some users. We asked to the industry to include in the consortia some users representative of the institutional community that were committing to support actually some phases internal to the contract development, in particular the validation phase, and let me say also a more detailed the benefit assessment phase that we somehow basically was inspired to the SEBS methodology. Then, as I said, there is also a very beautiful coordination, let me say, with the National User Forum that is chaired by ISPRA as well. That is, as I said at the beginning, is a powerful tool in Italy to keep the community really connected, because thanks to the National User Forum, besides IRIDE, there are periodical meetings where the institutions convey together. Sometimes industries are invited, the research and development actors. A lot of international agreements are signed thanks to the National User Forum activity. And so that's really our tool in Italy to stay connected. Now, in IRIDE, we have a connection with the National User Forum that is quite daily, and they have the role to guarantee that when ESA IPT wants to put together, I don't know, the air quality user community, they organize, they structure, they help us in transferring what we are doing, and we collect the feedbacks at all stages. Now we have closed the specification phase, for example, before the summer of the portfolio, and we did a formal process of collecting their feedbacks of this users community and to integrate them in the specifications. Now we are going to have the first delivery of real products beginning of next year for the precursor, and we will have, thanks to the National User Forum, the commitment of some of these users to be involved in analyzing the products, figuring out their operational use, even if now nothing is operational from institutional point of view, of course, but really is not like sometimes it happens in the workshops, user-driven. No, I can say that IRIDE is really user-driven, and especially the service segment, as it is correct, that is the most impacted segment by a user-driven approach. I can tell you is very tiring, very challenging, because you have to meet many people, to listen many realities, and then to cluster, to synthesize, and to make operational actions after this. But let me say that, of course, we have difficulties. We have a lot of problems. Sometimes in some communities, there is a big commitment. In other communities, they're less committed, less open. But I can say already after 1 year of activity that I think really maybe IRIDE will also, let me say, contribute to change a little bit the way this technology is used, because we hope that at the very end it will be really felt as a co-design system, let me say, really. And our industries, the industries working with us, knows that flexibility is one of the words we put in the contract. So we will ask you to be flexible. So no rigidity. If they ask to change a specification, we will do. Of course, if it is feasible, if it doesn't jeopardize the time plan. But and I can say that also industry are really working with the right spirit. And as I said, the consortia that are running the service segment contracts are mixed, are very mixed, because inside there we have industries, big, small, medium. We have sometimes research and development entities, and we have a representative of the user, the pilot users, so not let me say, the institutional ones that correctly stayed outside, and that enter thanks to our involvement. So it's not an easy schema to be carried on, but
it will be.
We are starting to make it work.
Yeah, no, I mean, it will be great, and it will be a good model for future programs. I should anticipate. We're starting to get some questions.
Yeah.
Let's turn to those. Gilles Ollier was the first. It's a fairly simple question, but Gilles, you want to come in? Opportunity to.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Gilles.
Hi.
Hello, hello, Jeff. Federica, I don't know if we met already. Maybe I was working at the Commission, but
yeah, I remember you.
Okay, I was asking about the budget because I know that the recovery package was allowing a significant budget. Meanwhile, allow me a question because after years of development of space activities at European level, because of the argument that we couldn't do at national level things without working with the other member states, and that you need to reach a critical mass, then with this initiative you go back to the national level. And this is a bit a surprise for me, but I understand very well what you say. Being close to the users, etc., is a very important point. And so, but maybe it is sort of a turn because it's, as I said, for 4 years, at least at Commission level, our understanding was that we would need to join force so that we serve better the European citizen. And in this case, of course, I know it was an opportunity to take the recovery package. And there are a lot of valid arguments, as you said, to work at national level. But let's put it this way: it seems to be a big change in the trend. So, and yes, I was asking about the budget of the initiative. But thank you very much for the presentation. It's new to me.
Thanks. Okay, the budget is known, is public, is more or less 1 billion of euros for all the system. Let me, if I may comment something about the interesting things that you said about going back with respect to the Europe-wise approach to space. I think no, IRIDE is very aware. If he were a person, I mean, is a program that is born in Europe, let me say, and in Italy. Okay, so as I said before, we do not do anything that is not starting from Copernicus and from Cosmos-Climate, of course, and from the other Italian assets. And I said, today we do not have a data policy, a service policy, we do not have an operator yet, but we are sure that IRIDE then will also contribute to Europe, as we are already doing as Italy with Cosmos-Skymed. So a liaison with Europe will be for sure perceived, but maybe today is too early. We do not have, we are still at the early design phase. So let's wait to have something in orbit and some service up and running to start thinking on how this will also contribute to Europe. We are sure that this will happen.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's something that we'll come back to. Maybe we can talk again. I don't know, 18 months time, something like that. Once the once that starts to become a more important aspect of the program. I mean, it's not just Copernicus. There's Destination Earth, Destiny, all other European ECMWF activities. So there's plenty of other activities in which IRIDE has to sort of somehow dovetail, and hopefully not too much duplication. Peter de Selding is asking an interesting question. Look behind something I said earlier. Peter, do you want to come in?
Okay, Jeffrey, you could just read it. It's pretty straightforward.
As you like.
Okay, anyway, I'll ask it. So, Federica,
Hi.
Good afternoon. Hi.
Good afternoon.
So the obviously Italy has got maybe the biggest resilience and recovery program dedicated to space, but there are others as well in Greece and Spain, in Portugal, in France. My question is, how strict is the deadline for these programs? 2026 is the big date, but if you've already committed the funding with binding contracts for launches, for satellite construction, for ground segment, is that okay, even if there's a delay beyond 2026? For example, satellite production delays happen all the time, launch delays happen all the time. So I'm trying to figure out how much leeway and margin you have in this 2026 date. Thanks.
That's a very, very complex question. Yes, up to now, we have the schedule that I showed you, and no one wants to speak about what if. Okay, so we are committed to meet our milestones. That, of course, had an impact in the architecture design, in the decision on the technologies to be put on board of the satellites and how the satellites will be done. And up to now, we have this deadline. And at government level, of course, my management is, of course, in contact with the government representatives in managing this program, as well as the other PNRR programs. Up to now, the deadline for the overall Italian Piano Nazionale is 30 June 2026, and that's all. So then, of course, we will expect we expect that close to that date, hopefully before that day, a governance will be set up, an operator, and also we have also to leave the system together with an assessment of the operational costs of the system. This is a deliverable that each and any industry will deliver in each segment to say, okay, this is the car and the fuel consumption is this, okay, in order that the government knows what is taking also in terms of operational costs. So this is for saying that for sure IRIDE will have a follow-up. The work doesn't stop 30 of June 2026. What it stops is a work. And today we do not have any, let me say, plan B with respect to that date.
I guess it's an issue primarily for the Italian government to
exactly, and not only related to this line of investment that, by the way, up to now is perfectly on time with the schedule. So we can say that today with all the segments.
Good. Philip Bauer's put a comment in the chat, but I'm taking it, he calls it a comment, so I'm going to take it as a comment rather than a question. If anyone has further questions, please pop them into the chat. Whilst you're thinking about that, currently you're using ESA contractual rules, I think, for procurement activity. Yeah. In terms of access to data outside of Italy and the policy around that in the future, is there anything you can say now, or is that still
no, I repeat, it's not ESA mandate to define the policy.
No. But I mean, alongside the ESA development activity, the ASI and the Italian government are still working on the program. So the question of data policy will need to be addressed.
Yes, will need to be addressed. Again, Italy has a long experience in managing data from public systems like Cosmos Skymed. So I'm sure that when they will start working on this topic, we will rely on a big experience. And also Copernicus is there since many years. So I think that this task will be managed as soon as an operator will be appointed.
Yeah. So I mean, the interest of most of the people in the call I think is to learn about IRIDE, because I think we've had a lot of interest in this EOcafe, and people want to know what it is. They may have heard about it but not have any of the details. So I think it's very helpful to have talked about that and exposed that to them. But longer term, I guess their interests are more about as an additional source of data.
For sure it will happen. I'm sure that it will happen. As well as also the access to the services. I'm quite sure that will not be open as Copernicus wants, because these services are really designed, tailored on public institutions' needs. So they will be probably have a restricted access, at least the one that we are developing now. But as I said, we are developing also a marketplace where, as a unique point of access of the system, where people will be able to browse and choose data, services. Everything shall be set up with respect. The data policy, service policy, access policy, licensing, everything has to be done. And is not in the mandate of ESA, because he's the owner of the system that has to take care of these aspects. No, cannot be delegated this type of.
Of course. And I mean, I guess the assumption will be that given the sort of national money that has gone into it, certainly for institutional users in Italy, it would be free access. For others, you can imagine more the Cosmos Skymed model or other models indeed. So I guess there's quite a lot of thinking that needs to be going on there. We're overall moving toward much more commercial activities in relation to Earth observation. So clearly, would hope that there is a strong commercial presence and a strong commercial.
Yes, but it will. We hope that it will happen.
Yeah.
And our industries are building will build a big capability developing this technology for IRIDE, because the IPR of ESA is known, so it is left to the industry. So they will grow. The commercial development of the commercial exploitation of a system is not only related to the data or to the product as they are, but also to the capabilities that who develop that system get while developing.
Yeah, could imagine potential for quite a lot of partnerships in that respect as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Industrial players. Okay. No one's coming forward with any further questions. We're coming towards the end of the time anyway. You talked about the user engagement and how bringing them into the decision-making activity from the beginning. Is that the same model for all services, or is there a difference between the 8 services?
No, it's the same.
It's the same. So
It's the same approach. As I said, it's natural that the commitment is not the same, but because it is really a wide variety of communities, and also let me say the contribution of IRIDE is different in some services, is much more evident than in other sectors. So no, because the portfolio is really tuned according to what, with respect to that domain, it is expected from an Earth observation system. And so there is a big variety among the different services.
Because the communities are different, they have different interests, they have different governance models, different structures. Some are more commercial, some are more institutional. So I can imagine that there has to be a certain amount of tailoring, at least, if not a lot of tailoring to the type of service.
Yes, that's exactly what we are doing, and this is why we call them service value chains, because we try to attach to each of them a macro use case, a macro institutional use case. So replying to a mission, replying to a job of that institution, not generically for I don't know, for civil protection, but for specific activity within that organization.
Yeah, and you're also using impact assessments to define priorities for those services. So that will take into account also the interest or the engagement of the user in that particular service.
And after the first cycle of the precursor, we will tune the portfolio, and in the second and third cycles of development, we will have, of course, a deeper and deeper integration with the other subsystem of the other segments of IRIDE, so with the ground segment, and of course the most important is with the data stream. And on the other side, at user level, we will select and tune those service value chains that actually will be confirmed to be needed. Because today we have two obsessions in developing IRIDE. One is, and we said many times today, not double funding. So not double funding with respect to what already exists in Europe, in Italy, and also in the other PNRR actions, for example. And the second obsession is to deliver to the government a sustainable system that will have operational costs that shall be minimized, of course, thanks to technologies that will allow a minimization of cost, of operational costs, and on the other side shall be really focused on what is needed. So after 2026, the organizations will decide to keep going services that are really needed. So we want really to deliver a portfolio that has been selected during these years.
Yeah, okay. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I haven't got my water close to me either. We've come to 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So let's draw it to a close there. Thank you very much for coming on, Federica. I hope everyone now has a better idea of what IRIDE is, and it will be exciting to watch it develop and to see what further resources there might be available for the European industry, because that's who we're really representing, but not just. I mean, Europe in general. Is there anything? Is there anything that we've missed? Anything you wish to add?
Me? No, I just want to thank you very much, because this is actually one of the first opportunity that we have to speak of IRIDE, not within an Italian context. So thanks a lot, Jeff, and I hope that we will keep in touch and have some updates on the program later on in the future months.
You have less reason to travel to Brussels now, but if you're ever in Brussels, let me know.
Of course, I will come to visit you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much, and thank you for Isa and Azzy for sort of allowing the exposure of the IRIDE program to sort of the European interest, and not just European. I saw some.
But it's a pleasure. Of course, it's a pleasure for us.
Good, great.
Okay.
Thank you. So next EOcafe in 1 week's time. If you recall, this EOcafe was moved a week because I had an issue with it. So the next one is retaking the normal rhythm of the fortnightly EOcafes. So next week, 5th of October at 4 o'clock as usual, and we'll have Gordon Campbell with us. So also ESA, but long-standing in ESA, lots of the interest in the industrial competitiveness and supporting the European industry, and so we'll get an update on his views and ESA's views towards enhancing the industrial competitiveness in Europe. And I think Gordon has a lot of interesting things to say. So please join us then. I think that will be a very interesting discussion to have. So hopefully see you next week. And there I'll close the EOcafe, the formal part of the EOcafe. Please feel free to stay online. We'll turn any recordings off. And if you want to just chip in, open your microphone and say anything, now is your opportunity to do so.